And we're back. It's been a minute, and I know I've missed some episodes, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This after show, welcome to the Almost Fiction After Show with your host, Chase Ellerman. That's me, Chase Ellerman, and I'm Chase Ellerman. So, welcome to my Cludio. You all know the drill. If you found me here first, just know that this is an after show. This is directly tied to my podcasts. Podcast. Singular. One. Almost Fiction. So if you haven't heard the episode on Mark Scott Thornton, go listen to that in your preferred podcast player. Rate and review, like and subscribe. Eat a donut. Delicious. So this is about Mark Scott Thornton. This is the after show. These are unedited, completely uncut. So you get to deal with all of my insecurities, my tears, my sorrows, my hopes and dreams. Me holding my hand weirdly in front of my face for no reason. So this one is this one is hard. There is something to say about drug use of an expecting mother. Drug use is, in my opinion, an addiction. It is a mental health problem more than it is something else. You can get addicted enough to where it becomes extremely physical, your addiction, but I think that a lot of it is a mental health problem, and I think a lot of people have mental health issues and they self-medicate. And one of the things they do to self-medicate is take drugs. And sometimes it's hard to stop taking those drugs, especially when you are avoiding things in your life that might be even worse, right? So Mark, his mother, Marquita, that was great naming, by the way. I'm sorry, that's rude, but it is really weird. Anyways, so Mark was born dependent. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Mark, as a baby, was dependent on drugs. His mother, Marquita, swears up and down that she never did any, though her mother, as well as her friends and some of her other family, testified under oath that she was on drugs and drinking during her pregnancy. So Mark's born with problems, and not only is he born dependent on substances, but he also has a hard birth. And when I say hard birth, he didn't get oxygen for a minute. Okay, it happens. I myself had the umbilical cord wrapped around my chest, around my neck, and under my armpit, and Thank you to Dr. Koss. No, it wasn't Dr. Koss. Dr. Nichols, I think. One of those two guys, you know, got in there, cut the cord, and pulled me out. So that kind of stuff happens, right? I had forceps imprinted on my head for like 3 4 days, weeks, I don't know. So on top of being born dependent, this kid is born, under a traumatic birth. So he was without oxygen for a while, and you never know. Like, look at me. I'm still finding out that have things wrong with me, just mostly in my head. But that's you don't know until development starts happening if there was enough oxygen present. So it's hard. Like, that's a double kick in the groin if you think about it. So he's born this way, right? And out the gate, the kid has problems, and not because of things because of things he does, but mostly because of what things other people are doing to him. That makes sense. I had air. So he has these issues that he's dealing with. He doesn't have a good home life. His mother is still doing drugs. He's often living with his grandmother, but his grandmother's older, and it's hard for people to keep up with toddlers, let's be honest. Like, I would have a hard time keeping up with a toddler, and I don't even have one. So, he probably is bounced around a lot. His sleeping arrangements are probably all over the place. He's probably getting driven around a lot, dropped off a lot, all these things. So he's growing up in Southern California in the 70s, and he goes to school, but he has problems at school. They put him in the special needs class, but I don't think he had special needs. I think that he had behavioral issues that they were equating to special needs. I don't think that his IQ would be low enough to qualify for special needs class. I just think that he had a hard time just with life. Like, his life was just all over the place. His living arrangements were all over the place. Like, he just didn't have any stability. And without stability, it's hard, I think, to try to focus during school when you're dreading going home or not knowing where you're going home. I don't know if that was the case, but I could definitely see that. He went to a bunch of psychiatrists. Like, that wasn't the problem. It wasn't that he was not seeing doctors. It's just that, at the time, they just didn't have anything for him. Like, if he has legitimate ADHD or maybe he's on the autism spectrum, like, especially in the 70s, they don't know what's going on. Like, they just told you that you have learning disability and you're in special ed, right? That's what they did to him. So he starts growing up. He doesn't like school. He doesn't like home. He doesn't like anything. And it's hard to blame him. He also has, some traumatic incidents. Like, he had a dog attack him. So he had that. And, there's other things going on in his life. He just had a hard life. Just a hard life, and his decisions only compounded from there. And I'm not saying that he's innocent, but he had a really hard life, like a lot of people that we cover do. But this one was just very well documented, which is why I kind of harp on it a little bit more, is because of how well documented it is. Like, there's multiple doctors, testified that they saw him growing up. They were able to, give their diagnoses. And I think he was diagnosed with ADHD eventually. But, it's just that, there was just nothing to do. You, like, put him on pills until he's, like, can't function anymore. Like, that's not living, right? And so he has this rough life, and his decisions and the decisions made by those around him only compound that. There are a lot of people who grow up with really crappy lives, grow up, born dependent on drugs, grow up and all these things, and they still live a relatively normal, productive life. So it's like, it's hard, and it's hard to know every situation that everyone's gone through. But Mark was just, I think he would have been a wild child even without all the problems, because there are just some people like that. So, he's bounced around to a bunch of psychiatrists. He's bounced around to different schools and different special education programs. And I think that's part of the reason why he's angry, is because he knows he shouldn't be there, right? And he makes fun of the other kids there because he thinks he's better than they are. When in reality, his IQ is just, like, his brain just works better than theirs. And, not for anything that he's done or not done. He just seems to be not as handicapped, mentally stunted as he's treated. And so that would be hard. Like, if you're not being challenged at all in your coursework, like, you're going to act out. Like, that's just a thing. So, this kid never had, I know I keep going on and on about this and probably repeating myself, but I just want to stress how important it is that he didn't have a normal childhood. And, a lot of people don't. But, like, it just seems like he couldn't win no matter what. Like, nobody was actually trying to fix the problems. They were just moving him around to be someone else's problem, which is hard, and it happens way too often. In high school, he gets in with the wrong crowd, right? He's acting out, so he's in detention a lot. He's probably meeting people there who are similarly disappointed in how they're being treated, and that's where he makes his friends. Doesn't help that his biological father, whose name is actually Steve Miller, like not part of the band. His bio dad's trash, only sees his kid like 5 times, probably not even on purpose, like just showed up and he was there. He ends up, he's a criminal and a drug addict, and he ends up, I think ODing or something. He passes away. He's no longer in the picture. His mom gets a new boyfriend, also a criminal and an abuser. So it's like this kid cannot catch a break. He goes and lives with his grandma for a while, but I also think that his grandma's boring, right? Because she's relatively normal. She lives a relatively normal retiree's life. And he probably just didn't like sitting around and not doing a lot and being in probably around a lot of old people. And that would also be hard. So he bounces, but he still goes back to grandma's house. But then he goes back to mom's house, I think, when he gets bored. So it's just this whole cycle. And then he gets these girlfriends, and I think that he has a lot of insecurity, abandonment issues, and so with that come, I think some of the things he does is him trying to like self-sabotage, right? Get people out of his life because they're going to leave. In his mind, they're going to leave anyways, so he might as well. I mean, after he like assaults his first girlfriend, and she like kicks him off of her and kicks him in the head and kind of snaps him back to reality, he's just kind of like, you know what, maybe we should break up. Like after he's talking to his friend, after he gets out of the situation, like he works himself up in this situation, and then when he's talking to his friend, he's like, you know what, we're not good for each other. Like I'm not good for her. I'm gonna break up. So it's like he has these moments of clarity, right, where he goes, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I did, but I shouldn't have. And so like that's a hard thing too, is that there are, the signs of him knowing what is right and wrong. Like he knows maybe he shouldn't be in these toxic relationships. Maybe he shouldn't be doing the things he's doing. So eventually though, he drops out of high school. He ends up living in a hotel because he can't decide between his parents and his grandmother's. Plus, when he's at his mom's house, there's no room for him, so he sleeps in his car. Like luckily he has a car, and that's what he sleeps in a lot, or he sleeps on the floor, right? And so he's bouncing around. He finally decides to move out on his own, moves to a hotel. Eventually that catches up with him. He loses his car. His car's repossessed, doesn't have that anymore. Meets a girl while living at the hotel. Her family's staying there because they're moving to the area. And she very quickly realizes that, maybe Mark isn't the greatest dude. He has some issues. He flies off the handle. He gets angry a lot for no reason. And so she just kind of goes, yeah, I don't want to be with you anymore. And that's when he makes his plan. And the rest is kind of history. I mean, you listen to the episode. Like, I feel like I was just rehashing the episode again. But, yeah, like he goes and makes a plan to get it. He needs a car. He needs money. And he needs to get out of where he is at to get away from everyone who's been bringing him down or treating him poorly or ignoring him or whatever it is. So he goes and he finds a car he wants, a Ford Explorer, and there's a lady, and he kidnaps her, and she fights back hard. Like, she is fighting. People see her fighting. Like, that's just weird that nobody called the cops because multiple people saw them fighting. But, it's the 70s, I guess. And he ends up killing her and hiding her body in an area he knows in a little cave. And, I mean, you listen to the story. He did it. Like there's no question about what he did. One of the things I did want to point out is some people tried to say that his girlfriend, Stephanie, that his second girlfriend that he kidnapped, trying to say, oh, she was happy, and she, like, there was actual witnesses who testified in court that they saw them together and that she was happy and she didn't seem to be distressed or anything, and she was literally placating her kidnapper. Like that's a thing that happens. Like placating their kidnapper, pretending, oh, you don't have to tie me up, you don't have to hurt me, I'm gonna do what you want me to do because this really isn't kidnapping, like we're running away. And so like, but the second she was able to, right, where she knew she could put distance in between them, not at a rest stop, not where he still has the keys to a car and she doesn't, right, she gets inside a giant building where there's a million places to run and hide, and she runs and hides. She finds security. She gets away. And the fact that somebody stood up and testified in court that, no, I think she was complicit, man, like that person deserves a swift kick to the nose. Let's all be honest. Like, let's look at the whole situation. Let's look at what's happening. Someone was dead, someone was murdered, and someone is being driven across the state, not knowing what's going to happen. Like, so they used to date, so she knows him, and she placated him until she could get away. It's that easy. Simples. So this case goes to trial. That's when everyone is. This was a long trial, like 125 days. I mean sessions, not days. Sessions. And I want to say like 1,000, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are testifying, right? Like it seems like if someone had ever breathed the same air as this kid, they were brought in. So like probably, I don't know, like 20 doctors, like just like half of his teachers he had growing up, like people were brought in from everywhere, because this basically came down to why, right? They knew who, what, when, and where. It came down to why. Why did he do this? Well, yes, he was born with problems, but some of his problems were put on him, and they weren't really his problems. He wasn't as mentally unfit as they like to say he was. I mean, he got his own car, right? Like, he was able to purchase his own vehicle that was later repossessed, but he got his own place to live. Like, he was able to do these things by himself. And he just made a bunch of poor decisions, and then I think instead of stopping at any point going, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, because he didn't have as much guidance, he just floored it, metaphorically and physically. So I think it's just hard, because I think that this is one of those cases that could have been avoided had the right interventions taken place and the right programs been provided. So that's why I think this is hard, and that's why I think I went so hard on pointing out his hard childhood, is because I think that some cases they can't be avoided, but I think this one could have. Like, I think some cases the people are going to do crazy, horrible crap regardless, because that's just part of their personality, their core. But I don't think in this case, I think that there could have been... Whoa, what was that noise? Did you hear that? Sound like a siren or something going off? Anyways, I think this could have been prevented. I think that there are programs in place now, and even then, that could have been better used or taken advantage of. I also think that with the advent of more and better understandings of certain conditions, things could be different today than they turned out being. And I hope I didn't ramble too long. I hope I kept you entertained. Please, 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 please review. Not, I mean, here, cool, yeah, but everywhere. Almost Fiction is kind of at a tipping point right now, and I would like to kind of get that pushed over the edge, and the only way to do that is you. You're the only one who can do that. So please, please, please share this with your friends. Share the podcast. Both of my podcasts. I also have another podcast called Tethers, so go check that out. Review, please, please, please. I will, message me. I will, I don't know. That was a weird hiccup. That hurt. Oh, and a burp. That hurt. Ooh. Anyways, please, message me after you left a review, and I will write you a very long thank you, because that's all I can do right now. I'm sorry. But appreciate you being here. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next case. Bye.